ADHD is, I've put the definition up here, I'll briefly read it. It's marked by an ongoing pattern of inattention or hyperactivity impulsivity that interferes with functioning or development. They experience an ongoing pattern of the following types of symptoms. I won't read them all, but the main ones being inattention, hyperactivity, and impulsivity. And you can see here from the slide, this can include things like excessively fidgeting, talking too much, difficulty staying organised, impulsivity, acting without thinking, and difficulties with self-control. There are 3 main types of ADHD according to most respected healthcare clinicians, and those are the inattentive type, hyperactive impulsive type, and the combination type. So most people tend to have one of the former types, so they'll be either the inattentive, which is the sort of lack of focus and lack of organisation, and the hyperactivity type being the more impulsive spectrum. And the combined type would be a combination of those things together. But we'll go more into those later on in the lesson. So the inattentive type, and bear in mind when I read out these symptoms, keep thinking about character flaws, right? And the character flaws that we've discussed so far, and which ones of these symptoms stand out to you as character flaws, or something that might be a character flaw. So, people with inattentive ADHD, they might get bored quickly, they might have trouble focusing on a single task, they might have difficulty organising their thoughts, they don't seem to listen, they might appear as if they're daydreaming, they might have trouble processing information as quickly as others, and they might have trouble following directions. They might struggle with impulse control and hyperactivity at times, but they aren't the main characteristics of this type of ADHD. So for me, the ones that stand out as potential things that might fall under the character flaw category would be things like being easily distracted, not listening to people, having trouble following directions, appearing as if they're daydreaming or maybe ignoring people, being bored quickly, which could also come across as, rude or inattentive. Again, interesting, because a lot of these things do overlap with our character flaws that we saw earlier. The other subtype, hyperactive impulsive type, symptoms are slightly different. So the ones that I'm going to highlight are constant talking, having difficulty sitting still, having trouble engaging in quiet activities, being on the go constantly, being impatient, acting out of turn and not thinking about the consequences of one's actions, blurting out answers and inappropriate comments. And at the bottom here it says, children with the hyperactive type of ADHD can be a disruption in the classroom. They can make learning more difficult for themselves and for other students. So I think that's particularly important to highlight in terms of our character flaw versus psychiatric illness debate. We defined a character flaw as something that causes problems for other people as well as yourself. And obviously in this case, that is what is occurring here. They're making learning more difficult for themselves and for other students. Not only that, but they are impatient, I would argue potentially a character flaw. They don't think about the consequence of their actions. That's something that we saw earlier as well as a character flaw. And this mention of inappropriate comments also might be a character flaw. However, we must remember ADHD is defined as a psychiatric illness. So let's think about what that really means for our question.